And so it's about received wisdom. Okay, if you're doing things like sort of like philosophically or whatever, received wisdom is really probably not a good idea. Received wisdom is this idea that some dropkick arsehole think they know better than you, so they can imprint you whatever fucking ideas they like, and you have to accept their wisdom or fucking else, and just be guided by their faith. That's your social betters or your spiritual betters or whatever, or guide you to a better tomorrow, and they have your best interest at heart. And that's like, yeah, right, okay then. Sure, mate. Bull fucking shit. Okay, right. So, it's not to say that there aren't, there isn't some kind of like which you might call percentile amongst all different demographics to say that how many are dickheads or whatever. This percentages usually show that 2% are genuine dickheads and everyone else is just confused. So okay, you can assume from that, if that's true, based on the statistics, that most people do in fact mean well, whether they're a rich man, a poor man, a white man, or a black man, or a Jew, or an Asian, or whatever, or it really doesn't matter. Okay, the point is though, is that where people are struggling, oh, that's a bit weird that happened. Anyway, where people are struggling seems to be this idea of what worldviews does each one have. So we call it the cultural myopia and misidentification process. Cultural myopia, for those who are not familiar, is this idea that when you go and view someone else's culture, you'll do it through the lens of your own. Okay, so it's basically the idea of you can't see that person's worldview because yours is in the way. And it's almost like you got two heads talking to each other. The space in the middle where the interpersonal space, call it the coffee table if you like. So that coffee table space is where the two worldviews are sort of meeting up, metaphorically, through the words, and then and there's something that passes. The words pass from a mouth to an ear, and seem to just encounter this strange distortion called the coffee table, that confuses people. So by the time your words get to their ear, or their words get to your ear, people are hearing completely different things. And they've tried to make up all these different excuses about, you can't hear them properly because you don't process language properly because, you're autistic, you're a spacker or some crap, which is fucking rude. There's absolutely no way that a person who is hyperfluent in language and has excellent, at least known for over-analysing things and hyper-analytical reasoning skills, could possibly suck at language. They're literally using it all the fucking time. Okay, they use it too much. So, you might want to consider that there's some kind of excuse making going on there. Or there's no reason to believe that a person who's not hyperfluent in any given language is terrible at language as well. They might be really excellent with the limited vocabulary that they have. The ideas behind that vocabulary could actually be quite complicated. So there's a whole bunch of assumptions behind that sort of feed into that cultural myopia problem. There's stuff they've tried to investigate too, like cognitive biases, everything from logical fallacies of all kinds, and varieties. Illusory correlations are just one of them. And illusory correlations appear to be the basis of a lot of religious and cult worldviews, quite frankly. Nonetheless, you might get a situation where the two worldviews have just similar enough language that people might assume that they're talking about the same thing when they're not. So, if a magician from the New Age Theosophic blah 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 variety, a medicist or something, was sitting at the table with a we'll call him a physicist. So a physicist and a New Age are sitting at the table together, right? Now we're a Kabbalist with a Q, okay? Just to point out, we don't really understand what the Jewish one is. We know Crowley mucked with it though. And turned it into something else again because of his own illusory correlations, cultural my own experiences. Anyway, so the New Age is sitting at the table, and the physicists are sitting at the table. And the physicist says to the New Age, "What's your take on the multiverse theory?" And the New Age says, the multiverse is right here and now. You're a universe and they're a universe." And the physicist turns around and says, "Cut your flowery speech already, okay? You're referring to a metaphor." That's not multiverse theory. That's something else. And the New Age goes, "Well, no, because we're all connected. There's the law of one, you see. And when you get to the upper planes, blah, 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 everyone becomes united as one person." Okay, Jim Carrey. Okay, guy walking around as a world. Mr. He used to talk about tetrahedrons. Kabbalist with a Q, maybe. Okay. Immaterial polygelism of the not cells. Right? Mr. Carey's affliction, the immaterial polygelism of the not cells. Right? So, Mr. Carey with your New Age immaterial polygelism of the not cells. How can a physicist help you with that? Well, a physicist might work for Google and might sit there and go, well, you know, yeah, they're not really talking about the same thing, are they? Can you make a computer to test it? Would there be artificial intelligence maybe that could analyse those ideas and come up with see what the relationships are between what they're talking about, what the physicists are talking about? And the answer is yes. And here's what they discovered. People shouldn't be telling people that their skulls are thick enough to protect them from artificial radio waves, because they're not. They're really not. Okay? If you genuinely believe that, it might lead to some kind of psychic warding. However, for some people, it's unavoidable. So, we'll start off with that. Also, New Agers, why are you using science jargon? It's confusing for people who don't know what your jargon is and what your metaphors mean. Could be taken down the garden path. New Agers, like the phrase DNA activation. You're not talking about DNA. New Age says yes, they are. It's your spiritual DNA. You don't have spiritual DNA. Are you trying to say that spirits have unique signatures? So each spirit is unique. If so, that's not DNA. But it's the codes for the matrix. There is no fucking matrix, says the physicist. And the only is, but you proved it. Scientists proved it at the 2022 Nobel Prize. And the physicists say, no, they didn't. And they straight up said they didn't. What they said was that space-time is not a necessary construct for the purposes of measuring certain types of field variables. Okay, and that could, through different advancements in hypotheses and testing over, say, the next 200 to 300 years, potentially lead to a hypothesis testable when it comes to simulation theory, or which, by the way, doesn't really exist. Okay, simulation theory doesn't actually exist. There was an argument postulated by Nick Bostrom in 2003 because he was smoking too much fucking weed and watching The Matrix. That was it. Okay, there's no simulation idea in that. when the physicists talk about things like virtual photons and stuff like that, they're not talking about virtual as in virtual reality as in your computer. Did you know that? Oh, well, no, it is quite simulated. The Matrix has all these codes in it that tells you, like, about competition and stuff like that, and not being able to love and light. Okay, so what you're saying there is, to you, society's cultural patterning feels artificial. Like that's probably a better way of wording that. Okay, if you mean that you think that society's patterning feels unnatural to you, that there is a better way of looking at things, then that might be a better choice of language, because some people don't know what you're talking about. There are, in fact, people who do work with computers, who are physicists, okay, and who are computer scientists, who don't know what you're talking about. Okay, there are people who are immunologists or biologists of some variety or another. You hear phrases like DNA activation, and they go, "You're full of fucking shit." They don't know what you're talking about. They have a specific worldview, including jargon, which was crafted over centuries, if not, so it's a decades, if not centuries, if not millennia in some cases, to try and make sure that discipline has some variety of operational definitions so their hypotheses are testable, and therefore they can do science at all. Okay, so the definitions of the terms you're using, New Age movement, aren't the same as the other groups. Okay, so you have a different worldview. You're accustomed to using flowery metaphors and taking language from other groups, okay, to make it sound sciencey when it's not. When you could probably use better metaphors that make sense to people, such as spirits have unique signatures. Okay then. Or the normal cultural patterning associated with a corporate life feels somewhat unnatural. Okay then. Just quietly, a political character might step in at that point and say, so what you're trying to say is, New Age, that the normal cultural patterning, or not normal, the cultural patterning associated with the post neoliberal fucking 1970s blah 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 corporations and whatnot stuff, okay, feels unnatural and unhealthy, and it's not of love or light. Okay, all right then, that's your metaphor for it. Okay, why do you guys seem so obsessed with like like law of abundance? What's this law of abundance thing? Like, are you saying that if think and grow rich like Napoleon Hill? Like, you can't think and grow rich. You really fucking can't. There is legitimate fucking systemic discrimination that goes on. Okay, New Ager, are you by any chance a white person? Are you a white person from a middle class background? If you're a white person from a middle class background, okay, then you're probably not aware of your cultural myopia about how the sort of fantasy lands of law of abundance doesn't actually apply to everyone else. And if you want to say, yes, it's an archaic deception strategy, yes, that's a nice code for saying the aristocrats fucking did it. That's a nice code for saying the aristocrats fucking did it. And so did the corporates, so did the racists, so did the sexists, so did just plain bad luck. Okay? Genuine mistakes, so on and so forth. Cognitive errors. There's plenty of explanations. Okay, that's occultic deception strategies. So the rulers have deceived you somehow, have they, New Age movement? Here's how. They deceived you into thinking that you could pray away whatever you liked. That's not how the world works for everyone else. No matter how many mantras they do, no matter how many frequencies they do, no matter how much logic and reasoning they do, they can't pray away the problems your cult has created for people by forcing hierarchy onto the blue crystal grid, by forcing illusory correlations onto the blue crystal grid, by having cultural myopia when it comes to Hinduism and Buddhism, by misquoting Christianity, by misquoting Islam, by misquoting Judaism, by having theosophy being racist to begin with, and moreover, by the lodges, some of the lodge groups of the continent being involved in the founding of the Thule Society, which contributed to the Ariosophic movement of racism that World War II was renowned for. That cultural myopia has hurt people. It's not of the love or the light. Why are you propping up the Vatican and the King of England and the corporates that rip you off by engaging in medieval dogma when it comes to terms like astrology or Vesica Pisces or whatever else it might be? If you claim that you think that modern life feels unnatural and you're unhappy about it. How's that for cultural myopia?